Your 20s are hard enough. Do not make it harder on yourself by beating yourself up for being lonely. You aren't a low value human being because you have maybe one or two friends only. Believe it or not, most content creators, I can't speak much for like TikTok and stuff, but most of the YouTubers I met are pretty shy. Hi guys, and welcome back to the Now What podcast. I am your host, Brooke Sabey, and today we're going to talk about being lonely. And being lonely in your 20s specifically, but also talking about just my experience with being lonely, and how I've kind of always been lonely. That sounds so sad, but like it's the truth. And just how you often hear this quote concept that if you don't have a lot of friends, maybe you're the problem. You know, if you're lonelier than you would like to be, maybe there's some sort of flaw in you. And I don't really think that that's necessarily true. I think that there's a lot of reasons that can factor into why somebody maybe doesn't have a lot of friends. Whether that be like you just outgrew people, which is totally normal. It's normal to lose friends as you grow up. Maybe you don't have a lot of friends as you're finding yourself. I mean, like, you gotta find yourself before you find your people. And yeah, there's moving to new cities. Like, there's so many reasons why you can be lonely, and to just like boil it down to like, oh, if you don't have a lot of friends and like maybe you're the problem. I don't think that's true. And I don't think you should feel bad about being a more solo flyer. I mean, I am a very lonely person, and there's nothing wrong with that. So we're going to talk about that, my experience kind of with that growing up, and how I really used to fight that and feel bad about myself and feel like there was some sort of like character flaw in me, which then just like made me feel like shit. To slowly realizing that like maybe you're just the type of person who has a really small circle and there's really nothing wrong with that. So that is what we're going to be talking about today. This is all supposed to be kind of a lighthearted podcast, but I really hope this one doesn't get very dark. So let's get into it. So like I said, I've been kind of always a more lonelier person my entire life. This is not like anything new. And my mom was very sweet about it and used to kind of phrase it in a very nice way and say that I was a best friend type of person, aka I only had about one friend all the time. Once I became like consciously aware that like I didn't have a lot of friends, that really mainly happened in like high school. Middle school, like late middle school, it started kind of like creeping in, but like high school, yeah, that like the reality kind of sunk in and I was like, damn, I don't have a lot of friends. And I used to like really beat myself up over that. And I was like, okay, you know, you see other people in your high school and you're like, why do they have a bunch of friends? Like, why do they have like a massive friend group? Same thing in like middle school. I just like never really fit in with large bunches of people. And even if I was hanging out in like a big group of people, I normally like, I still do this. I'll like gravitate towards like a single person and then basically like latch onto them out of like comfort. I've always been a best friend type of person my entire life. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Definitely when that best friend is busy, it can be really lonely because I'm like, okay, my one and only friend can't hang out with me. Well, what am I supposed to do now? So then that leads to me being alone a lot of the times, which honestly is kind of the reason I got on YouTube, because if that one friend couldn't hang out, I was like, I have nothing to do. So what did I spend my time doing? Filming myself in my bedroom, and here we are, still doing the same thing. So yeah, I'm still lonely. And like I don't even like care about that anymore. But as a child, that definitely like hurt more than it does now. Also, it's just years of loneliness. Like I've kind of just like gotten over it and accepted it. But as a child, like not feeling like you fit in a big group of friends, or like you always watch like the movies and like High School Musical and stuff like that, and like everybody's in like these large groups of friends, and like I craved that, and I would try to force it all the time and it just like would not work. And so that started the thoughts of like, okay, there's something wrong with me. Like why is my life not like the movies? Why don't I have like 20 friends that I hang out with and go to the mall with all the time? Like that's all I wanted. And I did some pretty questionable things to try to like attain that, early, like as a child, and I don't think it's like, I say questionable, but I think like everybody does this. Like I definitely was like trying to be somebody else right when I got into high school to appeal to people that were already kind of in a large friend group. These were not my people, but I was trying to definitely like force myself to fit in with these people. I knew damn well I was not supposed to be in that friend group. Um, but I just wanted that experience so badly that I like rejected being kind of a lonely child and like tried being somebody that I wasn't, to which you just should never do. I know this is like very common like advice that people give, is just like you shouldn't have to change yourself for anybody, but like I think that's a really common experience growing up, is like trying to act a certain way so like a bunch of people will accept you, and you know damn well like this ain't your place. So it really wasn't till about college that I kind of got over this mindset. I got very lucky in college where I actually did have a large group of friends throughout my entirety of college, which I've learned is not very normal. So I think it was kind of the universe just like giving it to me like for the one time and being like, here's your group of friends that you want so badly, like a big group of friends. Um, I will say it was lit, but also I think it was lit because I fit in with these people. This just naturally occurred. And that's another thing. Like, if you don't, this just has to naturally occur. If you're a lonely person, don't fight it. If you suddenly find yourself in a group of a bunch of friends that make you feel good, don't fight it. Like, just accept it. There's no like special equation about like of making this happen or how to like undo your loneliness. So that was kind of a lucky thing that happened, but I still realized when, even while being in like a large group of people, that it's definitely quality over quantity. And even when I was in that large friend group in college, I definitely had like I said, I had one person who I like leached to heavily, and she was like my best friend. She still is my best friend. And I think that's when I finally just kind of realized that like even if I am in like this big group of friends that I've always craved all the time, I still at heart am like a lonely person, a best friend type of person, as my mom puts it. And I was fine with that because I also like found comfort in the fact that like I was somebody's best friend. You know, you can be surrounded by all these people, but like at the end of the day, like, are you any of those people's best friend? Are you their favorite? So that like definitely kind of was something in the back of my head, and I could confidently say yes because I always was like a best friend type of person. Um and yeah, that just kind of like solidified like the quality over quantity. I was super grateful for like this large group of friends in college, but I knew like if this was to blow up somehow, at the end of the day, I would still have my best friend and I would be okay, because like having only one friend was not an unfamiliar feeling for me. But I always had like heard from so many people like, oh, if you lose friends, like you're the problem. You know, if you don't have a lot of friends, maybe there's something wrong with you. Like maybe you should look into yourself. And that really started getting to me. And I'm not going to say I'm like this perfect person and like that I haven't lost friends for reasons that were definitely my fault. There's a lot of reasons why I've lost people growing up, and a lot of them were definitely unfair to me. Um, so I'm not gonna sit here and be like, oh, I lost all these friends and it was never my fault. No, like I definitely up on a couple of them, but that's just like the nature of like being a teenager and like being a child. But I did wrongfully lose people, and so growing up, I definitely have lost a lot of friends for like a variety of reasons. So I think that's also why this saying that, oh, if you've lost a lot of people, maybe there's something wrong with you, crept into my head so much, is because like I feel like I have a good head on my shoulders to understand like when I have up and when I have done something wrong to somebody else. Um and there were so many times that I was like, why did this happen? Like, why did I lose this person? And I really could not figure out like what I did to like deserve this. So then it started getting into my head that, okay, I don't have a lot of friends. I can't figure out why people are leaving me. There must be something wrong with me that I can't see. And if you obsess over that, that's a nightmare. Like that really started getting into my head and making me feel horrible, that there was something wrong with me that I couldn't see but other people could see. So then that brought in issues with like social anxiety. If I say the wrong thing, maybe it's the reason that people don't like me. Like I think that's also like contributed to like why I'm such a quiet person now, which is so like, you watching this may have not realized that, but because I always get like, huh, when I'm a little bit more shy in person, and people are like, how are you shy and you're a YouTuber? Believe it or not, most content creators, I can't speak much for like TikTok and stuff, but most of the YouTubers I met are pretty shy. I really don't think that people are gravitated, at least back in the day, like to content creating unless you're a little bit lonely and you're a little bit shy, because it's a lot easier to talk to a camera, at least for me, than it was to talk to other people. And the whole comfort of being able to edit kind of what you say, like if I said something stupid, there was nothing, like I could just like fix it later on. This is a whole other conversation. But yes, I did lose a lot of friends growing up throughout the entirety of my childhood up until, I mean, I just fucking lost a friend like last month. Like it's still happening to me. And I'm going to be dead honest. I cried and cried about this whole, is there something wrong with me? Like 2 months ago. Embarrassing, but I'm gonna be honest. I was at a party and I had gotten into a really bad issue with a very close friend of mine. And it was just really up. And I was at a party. I had been drinking a tiny bit. And immediately, I think I had just been kind of like shutting this off in my brain because it was like, I had work to do. I had more important things than like dealing with this. So I just had kind of suppressed it. And I'm never this person, but I was this person. I was sobbing at this party, sobbing about, kind of in private. I'm not that motherfucker that's crying in like the middle of the party. I kind of remove myself, but like sobbing with a close friend of mine. Like, what is wrong with me? Why do people do this to me? Like, why am I so lonely? Why do I not have a lot of friends? Like, what the is going on? Why has my life always been like this? Like, why am I so lonely? Like, just all of the thoughts were like creeping in. And I was so dead set on like, there is something wrong with me. There's a huge flaw. And so I'm not going to sit here and lie to you that like, that doesn't sometimes like, I do not think that that's true. If you lose a lot of people, that there is something wrong with you. But there are times where I start thinking, okay, maybe that quote is right. And like, maybe there is actually something wrong with you. But like when I am calmed down and like really like logically thinking, I don't think that's true. You can lose friends for so many reasons. Like you move to a new city, you just like grow apart from people with age. I mean, there's people from my childhood that I was friends with in preschool that I know in my head I still like consider like my friend, but like they're not really, and I never see them anymore. There's no reason. We were 5 at the time. Like, you're not being friends with somebody at 24 when you're friends with them at 5. Like, just, like, you grow apart from people. I'm not the same person I was at 5 years old. Like, it's logical that I would outgrow people by the age of, like, 24. Or, like, even, like, 19 to now. Like, there's people in, like, my early, like, days of college that I'm not friends with anymore. Nothing happened. Just outgrew people. Moved back to Seattle and don't have really much of a connection with anybody that grew up here because I'm so different from what I was as like a teenager that there's nothing wrong with that. Like, so, and also the fact that I am a content creator. I work alone in my bedroom, no coworkers, nothing. Like, I don't really leave much. There isn't a lot of opportunity to meet new people. So that's a whole other thing also. And I understand now, like, why I don't have a lot of friends at this point in my life right now. Am I content with that? Not entirely. I definitely, like, wish sometimes I had more friends than I do. But it doesn't eat me alive the way that it did to me as, like, a child. And this is so sad. I just remember how badly that hurt as like a child. One of This is like not that important, but when I was a kid and in middle school there was these group of girls that I so desperately wanted to be friends with. And like I was talking about, I forced myself to act a certain way so these people would like me, knowing damn well that like these were not my people, but I so desperately wanted to be their friends. I went to a middle school with only 30 kids in it. Like there were only so many people you could pick from, and these were the people I really wanted to be friends with because they had like a big girl group. And it was so obvious that these people didn't like me that even when I was like forcing myself to be in a group of people that like I had like hit the quota on like having a big group of friends, I would still cry. I was like, I know these people don't actually like me, and they would do things that made it like so apparent. Like one of them had a birthday party and like invited everybody in the girl group and a bunch of boys. Like I was the only one that was like not included. I remember asking, I was like, "Oh, like why was I not invited?" And they were like, "We thought you were out of town." You could have literally invited me and I would have told you I'm in town. Like it was so obvious. They would just like lie, and I was like, these people don't want to be around me. But anyway, there's nothing wrong with being lonely. And I know, especially like talking to my friends now after college, like this is not like a unique experience. Like if you're feeling lonely, especially in your early 20s, um, and like I'm gonna talk about this probably more in like an episode talking about like post-college depression because I'm the oldest child. That hit me like a ton of bricks. But I've been like hearing from so many people just like how lonely they feel. And on top of that, I really like I don't want to get much into this. I do not think the pandemic helped with this in any way. I think people got really comfortable with being alone, which is great in some aspects, but also people's desire to like reach out and meet new people I think is lower than normal. And I'm calling myself out in that too. Like I know for a fact that like I was content with being lonely before, but I think I talked about this in an early episode. I can isolate. Like you could not hear from me for a month and I would be doing just fine in my bedroom. As long as I had food, water, and a computer with Wi-Fi, I would be just fine. Like I don't need like I know humans need human interaction, but like I feel like I don't need it a lot of the time, which is like messed up, and I know I need to like probably go to therapy about that. But I'm like really I don't think that like I definitely think that people are able to isolate a lot better because of the pandemic. So that's made things hard. Like if you're lonely right now, like listening to this, you're okay. It's all good. When you find friends, they just kind of naturally come. And like if you are working like remote and you're not friends with your coworkers and you're like kind of in a similar situation as me, or you're homeschooled and you don't know how to meet people, literally pick up a part-time job. Literally pick up a part-time job doing like anything. I was bartending on the weekends. Gave me something to do. Like if you don't have a lot of friends on the weekends, it's a really nice thing to like kind of like meet new people. Became really close friends with one of my coworkers. I don't work that job anymore, but like I'm still friends now with somebody from that job. So I'm like hang out with her frequently. So if there's things you can do to change your situation, you just have to be proactive. And it's hard because a lot of people are not like proactive now, I feel like, about like meeting new people. But yeah, that's just a small little tip that I got. Because I was like, I don't know what the hell to do. I want more friends. I don't know how to fix my situation. I want it to like organically happen. I don't want to just roll up to somebody on the street and be like, you want to be my friend? Like, you gotta like just like naturally meet people. And so how do you naturally meet people? You go outside more. I needed to do that. So I was like, okay, I need something to force myself to do that, which was getting the part-time job bartending. So if you have the flexibility in your schedule and you're feeling a little bit lonely and you actually want to change your situation, it's totally fine if you don't want to. I was content not changing my situation for a while. Look into that. See what options you got around you. It's extra money and you may make a friend out of it. So that was my whole like game plan for that decision that I made. And kind of going off of that, if you are lonely and you are really, really wanting friends, please opt for that option or like some other option. The last thing you want to do is allow your brain to convince you people that did you wrong should be allowed back into your life just because you are lonely. And I also really struggle with that, especially with moving home to Seattle, where like I do know a decent amount of people that I am not friends with for very good reasons now. And it would be a really bad idea for me to probably let some of those people back into my life. But when you're really lonely and you're like craving connection, it's really easy for your brain to convince you that like, oh, this person didn't do me that bad. Like, oh, they've changed, we've gotten older. And like, it's up to you in your situation, depending on like how the severity of it was. For me, a lot of the people here, real bad idea. I should not connect with these people based off of like the things like yourself best. And like really think about it if you're having thoughts of like, you know what, maybe I should just like hit up her like to see how or him and like it's been years and like it ended really bad and they hurt me really bad and I spiraled into a deep depression because of what they did to me. But you know what? Like maybe they've changed. Don't do it. Please don't let your brain convince you that like if somebody has walked out of your life or didn't support you or treated you just awfully in the past, yes, people can change, but what if they didn't? And you allow this person to come back into your life and you've made positive progress moving forward from that situation or moving away from that person or detaching yourself and you allow your loneliness to put you back in a position that could get you hurt. So that's a whole other thing. Please don't do that. Like, don't amend relationships with people that did you dirty just because you're like, oh, like people tell me that, if you've lost a lot of friends and you're the problem, so I better fix these relationships with people that did me bad because I like there's nothing wrong with me and I need to like prove that to myself. That also kind of like gets into my head too. I'm like, okay, like there's truly nothing wrong for me. If I fix these relationships that, got broken over time, then it'll solve my problem of being lonely and it'll prove that there's nothing fucking wrong with me. No, 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 don't do that. I don't think I've cracked yet, but I'm being honest here. Like, there are times that, like, being the lonely YouTuber in my bedroom and having a very small circle of friends that sometimes are not available, and I'm like, damn, I need, like, more people to hang out with, that I start getting the itch to, like, reach out to people that I really should not be reaching out to. And you gotta fight it. And I just kind of remind myself that, like, you are complete. You don't need more friends to, determine your self-worth. You aren't a low value human being because you have maybe one or two friends only. I get DM'd this a lot. Like people are like, I only have like one friend. Or I posted a TikTok one time where I was talking about how like, oh, I got bullied growing up and like it gets better. And a lot of the comments were like, it's so cool like seeing somebody that I look up to, going through that and being who they are now. And, I bet you have like a lot of friends and you're like so cool now. And I'm like, I definitely am in a lot better place, but no for the friends thing and no for the cool thing. At heart, I still feel like I am the little girl who got, bullied and made fun of and like was very alone growing up. Even though I'm such a different person, that little girl still lives on within me. So that's what I like to think when I have those thoughts of like reaching out to people or mending relationships that I really shouldn't just for the sake of not being lonely, that it's just little me talking. But grown me is like, no, we don't do that now. Like, there's a reason these people are not in your life and there's nothing wrong with being lonely. And another thing about that is when you get into that headspace that you want to rekindle a relationship because you don't want to be lonely, you start thinking of that person in a really positive light. I mean, like, bad friendship breakups, one, I think hurt more than relationship endings, honestly, in my opinion, and my experience with them. And two, like, when you break up with somebody, like, and you break up with somebody, like, in a relationship, and there's a good reason you guys broke up, you definitely will still think about like, oh, it wasn't that bad. You'll try to justify behavior. You do the same thing with friendship breakups. Even as years have passed, like I still catch myself trying to like change the narrative of what somebody did to me for the pure fact of like being like, okay, maybe I should hit them up. What they did to me wasn't that bad. This thing I was talking about, like, oh, time has gone on. I bet they've changed. And like kind of undermining the severity of what happened to okay yourself to hitting up this person. Um that's just the brain not talking correctly. Like and especially ones where you guys were childhood friends because I still stand by that most of the stuff you do as an adult that makes you feel good and gives you, a sense of purpose and everyone talks about it is like healing your inner child. I think a lot of times that can get confused with rekindling relationships that you should not be rekindling because there are people that have known you for the majority of your childhood who saw you literally grow into the person that you are, that you no longer have a relationship anymore for a good reason. And I told you like the little girl inside of me is like, like I miss this person. You change the narrative. You want to rekindle the relationship because this person watched you grow up, so it feels like a piece of healing your inner child. Don't get those two mixed up. That's really easy to get mixed up. I feel like, and like I catch myself doing it all the time. I think most of the friends that I've made in my 20s, trying to think. One was from like the bartending job. I tried Bumble BFF. I don't have any horror stories from this. Everyone that I've talked to that has used that, I feel like has horror stories from that app. So proceed with caution if you try to check it out. I've been just fine with it. I've met two people, like actually physically met two people off of that app. I'm still homies with them. Like went to Arizona with one of them last weekend. And it's so funny because both of them, like when we're out with each other and people are like, oh, how do you guys know each other? We get so nervous. And I'm like, I don't feel like there should be anything wrong with saying we met on Bumble BFF. Like, it's not something like cringy. Like, if you want to make friends, like, I don't think there's anything cringy about that. That's also a whole other thing. I think when you like are trying to make friends, like people think it's like so like cringe. They're like, oh no, I could like never like go up to somebody and just like ask them like, hey, or like, and you know what? I'd be saying the same thing. My mom's like, why don't you just like go talk to them? Like, and like make friends with them. And I'm like, we're not fucking 5 on a playground anymore. Like, that's weird. But like, it's really not weird. It shouldn't be that fucking weird. It shouldn't be weird if you meet somebody on fucking Bumble BFF. Like, the way you make friends, if you guys are friends, like, it's not that weird. I get the whole thing of people like wanting to like hide like how they met a significant other. Like, not be like, oh, I don't want to say like we met on Tinder because of like the stigma that like comes from that because it's like a quote unquote hookup app but I know lots of people that have like that are in like very good relationships from Tinder. But anyway, just like I don't think there should be any stigma around like how you make friends, especially when like you're in your 20s or you're like an adult or whatever. And for me, like talking to people on the internet obviously is a lot easier than in person. Like I could never go up to somebody at the fucking gym and be like, hey, do you want to be friends? I know that is a thing that like people do. Maybe because I don't go to the gym that frequently, but like that's just terrifying. Like imagine somebody being in like the zone at the gym and you just go up to them and you're like, hey, do you want to be my friend? Like I don't know how I would like time that without like being a nuisance to them or like pissing them the off because they're like trying to work out and I'm over here like, hey buddy, do you want to be my friend? So anyway, I really don't think the way that you make friends should have like a stigma, especially like Bumble BFF is literally for, this is gonna turn into a commercial, it's literally for like people looking for friends. So like you guys all know you're there for like the same goal. Like maybe the homie that you see at the gym or at the mall or wherever isn't looking for new friends and then you've just embarrassed yourself. I think that's just my social anxiety talking, but yeah, honestly, if you have any tips on how to make friends in your 20s, that could be a whole podcast episode in itself. I feel like I should like have a guest on that like has a lot of friends in their 20s that I know that they made recently and been like, how the did you make them? I had a friend, a flight attendant, that moved to a different city and he had so many friends. And I was like, how are you doing that? because I know these are people that like you just met. Like how are you making friends in a new city like in your 20s? And he works in like as a flight attendant, so he's like not always with like the same people, not the same coworkers. I'm like, how are you doing that? He signed up for some app where you like play sports with people and then you like get a beer afterwards. I think this was so funny. I think the sport that he said he did uh was it was like ultimate frisbee. I think that's what it was. It was like a frisbee. And keep in mind, this dude is like not athletic whatsoever. And so I thought it was so funny when he texted me and he was like, yeah, I'm making most of my friends from playing sports. I was like, good joke. Like, how are you actually making these friends? He was like, no, I'm playing ultimate frisbee with them. But because it's like the same kind of like structure as school. You show up to school and you keep seeing the same people over and over. So you like automatically just kind of find who your people are and make friends with them. It's kind of same kind of thing. It's the ultimate frisbee team. So they would show up to practice all the time to be the same people. And then they would get like drinks afterward to like actually like socialize more. And then like he just like made friends doing that. And he like kept trying like new sports like bowling and all this stuff. Same concept, same team of people, kept seeing them on a weekly basis, eventually ended up being friends with them. And then branching out and like meeting their friends. And that's a genius idea. I've yet to try it out, but I think that's the best way that I found like how to make friends. And had we not been like as good of friends as we are, I feel like he would have been ashamed to be like, oh, I'm meeting most of my friends from like ultimate frisbee. Like again, like with the stigma of like how you meet friends. There should be no stigma. There's nothing wrong with being lonely, and there's nothing wrong with like if you make friends in like an untraditional way, especially now. Like people used to laugh at me for doing YouTube, and like now look, everyone wants to be a YouTuber. So you know what? You may start a wave. You may start a wave of like how to make friends in your 20s. And people may laugh at you, and then the next thing you know, everyone's making friends that way. So, that being said, your 20s are hard enough. Do not make it harder on yourself by beating yourself up for being lonely. And if you are younger than your 20s and you're in college and you're lonely, that is also normal. That's a whole new environment. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. There's no flaw in you if you are struggling to find your people. And even if you are younger than that, like, I didn't have any friends growing up, and I don't think there was anything like inherently wrong with me. I was just maybe a little bit shy and a little bit weird and a YouTuber when it wasn't cool. And so people didn't like that. But like I don't think there was anything like inherently wrong with me. So there's nothing wrong with you if you are lonely, and especially if you are in a time where you're trying to figure out who you are and not knowing who your people are. Like, how the are you gonna figure out? I feel like I've sworn so much in this episode. I'm sorry. I feel like you are not able to like figure out who your people are if like you don't even know like who you are at your core. So if you lose friends, if you've lost a ton of friends, I'm here with you. I have too. I really have. And like I used to never say that. I would have never said that out loud, probably even like 2 years ago. Like how many people I've lost in my life. Because of that quote, like, oh, you know, if you've lost a bunch of friends, there must be something wrong with you. So I was so convinced. I was like, I was going to scare off potential new friends if they had known like the number of friends that I had like lost. And I mean, like, I've made new friends now, and like I've told a lot of people about like my childhood growing up and like not having a lot of friends, and like it has not scared anybody away. But I had this whole narrative that like I'm flawed. If they figure out this, they're not gonna want to be my friend. So no, that's not true. Stop saying that quote. I hate that quote. It just makes people feel bad that maybe are just introverted, antisocial, or, you know, have changed a lot. I feel like I've changed so much growing up, like constantly. I wouldn't say like more than most people, but like also as we like continue on this podcast, you'll see a lot about like what has happened to me like growing up and like all of the nutso shit that's happened to me. And you're coming from my YouTube, like you've seen a lot of the crazy ass shit that's happened to me. I think it's like forced me to change a shit ton, which then, you know, causes me to lose a lot of people because my personality changes, like the way that I live my life changes, then like it just ends up like phasing people out. You know, being in like an untraditional like industry also, I think, like, kind of, like, scares people, and I haven't always been doing this. I have always been doing this, but, like, there are breaks, and I've noticed that, like, when I restart YouTube and stuff, less people are around versus when I quit, then I tend to have, like, a lot of more friends around. So, I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but, like, there's so many factors, I think, that I've, like, changed a lot really fast over a short amount of time. Maybe I haven't. Maybe that's all just in my head. And maybe this is a ramble. I don't know. But moral of the story is I have lost a lot of friends. There is nothing wrong with me. I am still a person deserving of human connection and love and good people around me. And just because what has happened to me growing up and maybe who I was in the past, that doesn't mean that I deserve like nobody now because there's some sort of flaw in me. And same goes for you. And also, I know people view me like, especially like younger audiences for me, view me as kind of, they ask me a lot of times, they're like, how do you deal with like bullying or like, you know, you seem so cool. I wish I could be like you. Like, I've gotten comments that are like, oh, I just definitely know that you were like popular. I was like, the way that is just like the biggest lie. So like, I also would have never been like, oh no, I was a fucking loser because I was afraid of that. I was afraid of like actually just like owning it. But like now I don't care. I really don't. So if it makes you feel better and less alone, I don't have a lot of people in my life. I don't have a lot of friends in my 20s. I haven't had a lot of friends growing up, and that's totally okay because as my mom puts it, I'm a best friend type of person. I'm a little bit more introverted. I'm shy and I work a remote job completely alone with no coworkers in a city where I really don't know anybody anymore. So, and there ain't nothing wrong with it. And I don't want anybody to make you feel like there's something wrong with you because maybe you share similar traits to me and are just tend to be a little bit more on the antisocial side. Nothing wrong with you, I promise. But anyway, long story short, your 20s is hard enough. High school is hard enough. Your childhood is probably hard enough. Life is hard enough. Don't beat yourself up and add more stress to your life by believing this quote of you're the problem. It's just unnecessary stress. I think that's why I have so much like hatred towards it because I allowed this dumb saying to really make me feel like yes, it made me self-reflect, which was kind of nice of being like, okay, what type of person am I? Would I want to be my friend? Like really look into who I am as a person. But it also gave me like so much anxiety and just like made me feel like there was something wrong with me that I wasn't seeing. So your 20s is hard enough. Your life is hard enough. Don't listen to this. Don't get down on yourself if you're not hitting a quota for friends that maybe you like want to hit. It'll happen. And if it doesn't really matter. Like as long as you really have like one quality person, that's all you really need. And the most important relationship at the end of the day, and yes, this is so cornball, is yourself. Every day you wake up and you go to sleep with yourself. So you better like yourself. And you can all you're your best friend at the end of the day. I'm my own best friend. Like I love hanging out with myself. So I think if you are lonelier than you would like to be, take it as a time to really get to just know yourself better. I don't think it's super common that like I I can confidently say, and I don't know if it's super healthy, that like I'm okay being by myself for like extended periods of time. I always hear people crack jokes and they're like, I can't be by myself, like the thoughts get too loud. I'm like, that's not good. Like you should be able to spend extended periods of time with yourself and be content. Like you shouldn't be afraid of yourself. So if you are in a time of your life where you're lonelier than you would like to be, take it as an opportunity to like really just get to know yourself. Um, who are you? Self-reflect. Would you want to be your friend? If not, like what are things you can work on? Um, find things you like to do, try new hobbies by yourself. Like just explore who you are as a person. I really think being lonely is like an opportunity to figure out what you want to do and who you are. And if you never have a time in life where you are really lonely, and I'm talking like no friends, no boyfriend, no girlfriend, your parents aren't around, nothing like that, then I don't think you'll ever figure out who you are at your most pure form, basically. And that kind of stinks. I know that there are people that like really can't be alone at all and like always have like so many people around them, and like there's nothing wrong with that if you're happy doing that, but maybe just for a second be like, I need to spend some time with myself. Maybe this is just the antisocial in me talking, but I really believe this, that like you need to spend quality time just with yourself so that you are comfortable with yourself and you learn more about yourself. And that way, if you also find yourself in a time where you are lonely and you don't want to be, and it just happened, everyone stops being your friend, you don't know anybody around you, that loneliness isn't as scary as it would be if you haven't kind of like trained yourself to be content with who you are and be happy with being alone. That's just my 2 cents. I still hate being lonely sometimes, but I know I can handle it. And you don't need a certain number of people around you to determine your worth as a person. I promise. And the best people in your life will come in when you're not even looking, and that works for relationships too. It just happens. It'll just happen organically, so don't beat yourself up about it. You are loved. I love you. And thank you for listening. I love you even more if you made it all the way to the end. So I think that is it for episode 4 of the Now What podcast. If you guys liked it, make sure to give it a big thumbs up and subscribe so that way you know when I upload new podcast episodes. And for episode 5, we are going to be talking about why you should not be business partners with any of your friends and my experience with that, and learning pretty recently and the hard way that just because they're your best friend, that don't mean you guys need to start a business together. And it may be the reason that your friendship ends, because businesses are really stressful and they cause a lot of stresses, and sometimes relationships and friendships can't withstand those stresses. So just don't do it. The B in BFF does not stand for business. It does not. Don't do it. So we're going to talk about that. And as always, if there's anything you guys want to hear me talk about, or anything I've ever like hinted at on my social media, and you're like, what, Brooke, we want to hear more about that, make sure to leave a comment and I will for sure look into it and potentially make an episode based off of your suggestions. So I will see you guys next time. Thanks so much for listening. Bye.